the shadows that we don't want to look at, we just like project onto our partners. A lot of times, we maybe criticize our husbands or our partners and we're like, why aren't you paying more attention to me, right? Why aren't you doing more for me? And why don't you appreciate me more? But really, it's our own shadow that we don't appreciate ourselves and we don't make time for ourselves. And we're wanting someone else to give this to us when really we're the ones doing it not to ourselves, right? And our business is very similar because we have a relationship with our business.
Modern parents are under immense pressure and overwhelming stress to be a perfect parent and raise a generation of highly intelligent children. Amidst worrying about raising happy children, most of us never stop to think, how do I create a life of ease and peace? What right do we have to teach our children how to live life if we don't know that ourselves? I'm Saloni Singh, a life, self-mastery and family coach. My mission is to help parents raise themselves so we raise a generation of conscious and aware children. In my podcast, you will find simple yet effective tools for life, not just from me, but my inspiring guests as well. So let's begin. Hello friends, this is Raising Parents 2.0. Create a life you love living. I'm so excited for our special guest today, who is a shadow magician, Anna Tsui. Anna is a business and leadership coach and an international writer, speaker, and a serial entrepreneur. She's the founder of the Intuitive Business School and specializes in helping people identify their genius gifts and create a big impact in the world. Her first book, Shadow Magic, Use Your Fear to Create a Prosperous Coaching Business, shows readers how to overcome their personal self-sabotage and build a thriving career and business. So let's talk to Anna to understand what does it take to embrace our shadows and fears and lead a life of power. Join me in welcoming my guest, Anna Tsui.
Yay! Hi, Saloni. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. This is such a special treat for me.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward. I'm really excited for our conversation, Anna. So I have read your book and I have spoken to you. I know a few things, but I would love for you to describe a little bit about yourself, your journey, and how you have come to the place where you are now.
Oh, that is a very long story that I will condense for your audience. I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I've done several startups, international startups, but what brought me to the world of coaching was actually something of a tragedy and a gift, and you and I discussed this a little bit. I was doing a startup in Beijing. It was China's first health tech startup, fitness health tech startup, and my grandparents, both of them are very, very sick, and I had really, when I reflect back on it, the honor of helping them pass, right, from this life to the next. And during that time, people were asking me for coaching, and I had no idea what this was at the time, right? This was like kind of new to me, and the industry was kind of fresh too. And that's what started my journey into the world of coaching and personal development, and then ultimately to writing Shadow Magic from just the stories and the things that I learned along the way.
Awesome. What a wonderful story. And what you shared about, that passing to the different realm, I think that's a very healing process for everyone around the people as well. And that brings a lot of, power as well, I think. Even though it's a difficult time for, most of us. Yeah.
Yeah, and I realized this later on, but that fear of death, which is the one thing that's, connects all of us, is it's all going to happen to us one day, right? It can be a terrifying thing that can control our decisions, and we avoid things just like we avoid that topic, or we can just recognize it and be in comfort with it. And then we actually end up living a different life. And I have my grandparents to thank for that, because it was actually partially terrifying and scary, but then it ended up being a huge gift to me. Right. And then it allowed me to realize, and I think you would appreciate this because you're very spiritual as well, it's not much different, right? The realms were so connected. I'm still connected to my grandparents, right? I still have conversations with them. And I wouldn't say that, I'm psychic or anything, but I very much feel that they are here just like I felt. And of course, I can't, taste their cooking or anything like that, but it's just like a different relationship, right?
Beautiful. No, I can totally feel that. And it's just not the fear of our own death. I think it's the fear of losing our loved ones. That is also something I think we all are connected through. Yeah. So shadow magic. I really want to, start with what is shadow magic, and maybe like for someone who has maybe never heard, like we talk about shadows as coaches and we work with them, but for somebody who maybe has never even heard the word and they're wondering, okay, what is this shadow magic she does? So can you share?
Oh, that's a great question. So when we think of magic, it's like something that magically appears, right? It just happens without any logic to it. It's just mysterious, right? And what I realized in my journey of being a business coach and receiving business coaching and my startup journey of creating businesses, I was obviously asking myself the question, why is it that some businesses do so well, some teams do so well, and some don't, even though they have a great idea, even though they might have funding, right? And underlying, and this is the same when I was working with my coaching clients, like underlying, there are things that run our business that create magical results, but maybe they're not the results that we want, right? It's the results that we're like, why is it that whenever I try to launch something, it does really well and then it flops, right? Or why is it that whenever I try to grow, something stops me, or I get sick, or my life turns into chaos? And all of these things are actually, it's the shadow parts of us. It's the parts of us that are unconscious, that we're not aware of, but actually run the show. I think one of the most common comments I received from readers of the book is, Anna, I'm so surprised by how much my shadow, my unconscious, and my fears and my doubts, right, run the show, especially run my business, versus my executive self, right, which is like the conscious part of us that like we can lead from.
Awesome. So, what kind of fears you're talking about when you're saying the shadows? And I relate. I work with a lot of parents, and many of our listeners are also moms and dads. So I know like this works in the personal life as well, in our relationships as well. It's not just our businesses. Actually, our shadows are running the life, and we aren't even aware of them most of the times. So can you like pinpoint for people like what could be these fears actually?
And it's so true in relationships. So when we're connected in a family unit, in a marriage unit, the shadows that we don't want to look at, we just like project onto our partners. So I know for me and a lot of my friends, a lot of times, we maybe criticize our husbands or our partners and we're like, why aren't you paying more attention to me? Right? Why aren't you doing more for me? And why don't you appreciate me more? But really, it's our own shadow that we don't appreciate ourselves and we don't make time for ourselves. And we're wanting someone else to give this to us when really we're the ones doing it not to ourselves, right? So in relationships, you see this so clearly. And our business is very similar because we have a relationship with our business. And I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like a business is a living entity. And I know in our cultures, there's like an astrological birth date to the incorporation of the business. So it's a real living entity, especially in the law, but also spiritually speaking, energetically speaking, it's a live thing. And so we have a relationship with this business. So the shadows that we don't address are fears of money, our own self-worth shadows. So shame around I'm not worthy enough. We hear imposter syndrome a lot, right? That's a shadow. Yeah. Any fears or doubts around visibility, like fears around visibility. So if I'm really seen, if I really show myself or mark myself, I'll be judged. People will criticize me. I don't want my family to see what I'm doing, right? Or if I speak up and speak my truth, then people won't like that, right? Or I'll be criticized, or people will get jealous of me. So these are the things that I hear a lot of that actually end up impacting our decisions in our business. Right? It's really subtle, but it's really profound.
Yes. I mean, these are the common ones. Also, the ones like, oh, am I good enough? Like being feeling like an imposter. I think that's also a big one. So I think a lot of people would be relating with this right now, Anna, that they feel all of this. Okay, what will people think of me? Oh, can I really do this? Am I good enough? So what could be the first step for somebody who is listening to us right now? Okay, I see that in me and I can recognize that this is happening for me and I'm kind of holding back or really playing small because of all this. What could be the first step to really, let's say, overcome it?
Yeah, so there's a questionnaire that I ask people, and I can send you a link, and people can download that as part of the book for free. And basically, it's a business assessment that you can also take to your life. So basically, I ask questions like, how confident do you feel in your marketing? Right? How good do you feel about your pricing? Do you feel like you're earning the amount of income that allows you to thrive? Do you feel like when you speak your truth into the world that people can hear you? And basically, the more positive you are on that scale, meaning, yeah, I feel pretty confident about what I'm doing, then that part of your business, whether it be the marketing part or the financial part, right? Like that part of your business is probably not run by your shadow. You probably have a good grasp of it with your executive self. However, my experience is most people, they have less of a confidence, right, around what they're charging, around their ability for them to attract clients that really value them, or even in personal relationships for their partners to really listen to them and respect them and value their time and their efforts, right? So anytime when we feel something is not where we want it, chances are there's a bunch of shadow stuff running the show. So I would advise for your audience to really look at the area in your life that feels the most out of alignment right now, and just look at just asking yourself the question, oh, what are the fears or the doubts that are running the show here? And oftentimes people are surprised because it can be really deep, right? It can go to, oh, I didn't realize I didn't realize me not having control over my schedule or feeling overworked, right? And like my time is taken up. I didn't realize that was a personal value thing, right? I didn't realize it was because I wasn't valuing myself. So I'm giving away my time for free. So even just looking at the areas of your life where it feels very restricted, and asking yourself, okay, what are the fears that are causing this? What are the thoughts that are causing this to happen?
So, what are the fears or thoughts that are causing this to happen? So, once they realize that, like for example, if I think of myself, like in the beginning of my coaching journey, I always used to think, okay, why would people pay? But I want to charge, but I think the value I can bring because they don't know the value, they haven't experienced it yet. So
Yeah,
how will they know? And why would be they anybody paying that? Till
yeah.
I took the courage and started raising my prices, and people were happy to pay. So that was quite a surprise that actually they are seeing the value. So once they recognize, okay, this is the fear which is running it, what is the next step then?
Oh, so if you recognize the fear, so if you realize, okay, I have been causing these patterns in my life, right? So that's a really powerful way of identifying shadow too. Is like looking at patterns in your business, looking at patterns when it comes to your clients, looking at patterns when it comes to yourself. And this is why hiring a coach like hiring you would be a really great idea for people, because a lot of times we can't see these patterns in our lives, right? And oftentimes patterns in our business also show up in our personal life because it's around stuff like what you mentioned, personal value, right? Personal confidence. And so when you've identified what that is, you've identified the fears that you have that are running the show. And typically the fears are like, I'm not going to succeed. So I was just talking to someone this morning, and they're about to do a big launch and they have a big goal. They wanted to make a $90,000 launch and, get people into their group program. But when I felt into it, they were in such fear and doubt, right? They're like, yeah, I want to do this, but I'm really, what if no one shows up, right? What if I market and everyone laughs at me, or people judge, or I can't fill the group? That's really embarrassing. And that's the energy that they're leading from. So when you've identified, oh, maybe I have some fears and doubts in this project, right? In my career, in my business, whatever, then the next step really is to ask yourself, how can I have a fearless confidence around doing the thing, right? Around doing the project. And sometimes having a coach, having a mentor is really essential, because we're so much in that fear space that even though logically we know, oh, it's possible for me to succeed, unless we're completely energetically behind it, we can't actually get the outcome that we want, because everything is energy. It's the energy that you come from, which is why if we come from a place of scarcity or competition or even doubt, like, I know people pay for this, but why would someone pay me for this? Even if there's a little bit of that, it's going to affect your interactions, right? Because pure confidence is what creates amazing results. So whatever you need to do to get that level of confidence, right? And maybe you know yourself, you can just talk yourself up or do some journaling or whatever. For me, I need a lot more than that, right? So knowing what you need really sets you up for success.
So knowing what you need, really, talk to yourself about, okay, how do you want to be? How confident you want to be?
Yeah. What do I need to be fully confident in this project? The reason why I was able to be successful in coaching was I told myself, okay, Anna, I give myself 1 year and a fresh new credit card, because we love credit in the United States, right? A fresh new business credit card. And I was like, I give myself 1 full year to play 100% in, make mistakes, like run charges, be responsible, but, invest in coaching and stuff. And that made the biggest difference for me because I knew that no matter what, I was just testing and playing. And that allowed me to learn, I would think, 3 to 5 years worth of business in terms of the coaching world in that 1 year, because I gave myself that ability to be confident, right? Because I was just curious and I was testing. So curiosity can sometimes bypass the ego. And well, I'm just testing this out. I'm just seeing if this will work for my launch, right? I'm just seeing if I ask for a promotion, if I'll get it. And typically that allows us to be more confident.
Awesome, awesome. So what you're saying, that what you did was you just kind of just took away the fear of, okay, if I don't succeed, basically just being curious and excited about it, and give yourself that time. It's okay, even if it doesn't work, it's fine. But let me give it my full. Yeah, awesome, awesome.
Yeah, and people need different things for that. Some people, they might need the support of like a mentor or friends. Some people need to not tell anyone and just do it secretly. And then it's like, oh yes, I got my first client, and then you tell everyone. So I feel like people are unique in that sense. So it's important, I think, for people to be honest with themselves. What do I need to allow myself to give this 100%? Because otherwise what happens is we just try 10%, or we give it 50%, and then we get scared and we're like, oh, that's not meant for me. You have to give it 100% to really learn and to really see if it's for you.
Awesome. So what you're saying, the key is to give your 100%. And if you feel that you need a coach or a mentor to really help you, unravel those fears and shadows and work through them, then do that, because that's part of being 100%, giving your 100%.
Yes. And it's easier and faster, so much faster. I've known so many people who struggled for years and they didn't have to.
I relate with that because I know you as well, and we have had many coaches and mentors in our journey, and that has obviously really accelerated the journey we are on. Yes. So you mentioned about personal values, and I remember when I was talking to you earlier that we were talking about personal essence. So these are two things I really also want you to kind of elaborate on. What do you mean when you talk about personal values and personal essence as well?
Oh, yeah. So all of us. So I really feel like we all have a unique genius, right? We have a unique perspective on how we see the world. And the thing is, we don't see it as unique because it's so normal to us. But when I start talking to people, I'm like, yeah, that's actually really unique. That's really different. That's not a normal, typical thing, right? And so we have I call personal essence. So it's the personality of your soul. It's how you naturally see the world, which is also directly related to your gifts. And your personal values are really your standards that your essence needs in order to thrive. And an example that we talked about earlier today when we had our lovely discussion was, I have a client who their personal essence, just their natural way, their perspective is the natural way that they show up in the world. They love exploring mysterious places and things. They love adventure, right? And I was telling the story how when he was a little kid, he would actually escape from his house and go off exploring. And his mother was like, "Where are you? Where did you go?" And he got in trouble for that, right? But that was just natural curiosity. And his standards, because he wasn't just exploring anything, he was exploring the most mysterious places. So places where you and I are like, yeah, we're not going there. He's like, I want to go there. And there's nothing right or wrong with that. It's just the way that he's built, right? But the thing that happens to him and what happens to all of us is we forget this because we get jobs, we get degrees, we do this, and then we kind of forget the essence that makes us unique and that gives us that special sparkle. And for him, he was running businesses and he wasn't exploring or doing any of the stuff or discovering the mysteries of life. That's what gave him fuel. And so what happened was, like, he had forgotten about that for most of his adult life. And then when we started talking about it, at this time he was running a marketing company. He just started allowing himself to explore again and to remember those things that his soul naturally loved to do. And his business grew so much, even though it wasn't directly related to his business, but it allowed him to be more himself. It allowed him to be more magnetic. And so we all have that part of us that the things that we're really drawn to. And if we can pay more attention to that, even if it's not practical or useful, it actually is the most useful thing you can do, because it's what makes you you. It's what makes you unique.
I absolutely love this because I see so many people are just doing in the world, what they are supposed to do, and just not really tapping into the soul essence. And I think we all are different, as you said, that we all are unique in that sense, that what we are drawn to, and that is our essence. That's beautiful, and I'm sure a lot of people can actually relate with that. How that plays in their life, and then they feel like kind of they're just shrinking because they're not allowing themselves to really access their unique gifts and their unique, qualities as well.
Yes. And that feels very unfulfilling. So it might not mean that you need to quit your job, or it might mean that you do need to, right? But whatever it is, like, you're doing something, you can be very successful, but it could just feel so unfulfilling. And you're like, why is this? I can't live another day, even if I'm making tons of money, right? I can't live another day doing this because there's something not fulfilling for me. There's something not joyful for me.
And most of the people, I think, Anna, they feel it. They feel this kind of niggling feeling in the background. There's something saying. So a lot of, I'm sure you relate with that as a coach. A lot of people come to me and say, I don't know what is it, but there is something missing in my life. There is something which is telling me I'm not happy, even though everything is fine. I'm making money and I'm successful and everything is there. And that is something, when we start exploring, they realize that essence is missing, what they really would love to do. So how can somebody who is maybe just doing what they have been told to do, or what they were trained, in school and by their parents, okay, this is your path, and they're on that path, and they want to now discover themselves, let's say, and they want to understand, okay, what is it that my unique, essence or purpose is, or what can be a good way to really for them to reach there?
There's something that I've discovered in my work that I call your natural soul obsession. And this is something that I can offer for folks, because typically tuning into your essence, it does take a bit of time, and it's time that we spend together to really feel into your inner genius. And I want your audience to have a taste of this, right? And it's very innate. It's like stopping to think about, what is your soul always obsessed with? Right? For me, I'm always learning and reading and writing and watching programs. And even if I'm watching, like a Netflix TV series or something, right? I'm always looking for, what's the lesson? What's the lesson that can help someone? And so I look at all the things that I naturally do, and then I find the common thread. And it's almost always, okay, how can I use this teaching and share it with my audience, and share it with my clients, and share it with my friends, and share it with my family? How can I help other people thrive? That's one thing that my soul is absolutely obsessed about, is like finding information to help other people succeed. And I know for you, we talked about it. For you, it's something similar, right? But would you like to share? I think that's so beautiful what you said, the things that your soul is obsessed with.
I don't remember what I said that time, but I know that I'm always looking for something spiritual, like even in
Yes.
the mundane. Even that's what I told you. Even in the mundane, even something funny is going on or something totally silly, and I would just tell my daughters, "Oh my God, isn't it so connected with the mystery of life?" And they would just laugh at me. Mom, you can find a spiritual connection in anything.
Anything.
But
Yes.
what is going wrong, even if things are going wrong or things are chaotic or not working the way we want. So yeah,
Right.
this is, I think, something I'm recognizing now. And as you said, that time soul obsession, I was like, oh, maybe this is what my soul obsession.
Yes. Because it's absolutely not normal. And you can just ask your daughters, like, Mom, that's not normal. But it's your unique thing that is why people are drawn to you, right, Saloni? It's why people are like, something about how she sees the world, it feels like what my medicine is. It feels like what I need. And so if we can just begin to ask ourselves this question, usually it can come to us pretty quickly. Or like you said, you can just ask your daughters, right? And they can tell you right away because chances are you're obsessed about it.
Yeah. I think our family members know that. They always see that what we are talking, what is happening on the meal times or in our, a time when we are together. These things are going to come out naturally when we are fullest, being ourselves, which is, I think, most of the time with our family, we are like that. So I'm sure that's a good point, actually. People can start looking at how their family, see them and know them.
Yeah. And there's a good side, right, which is people recognize that part of you, and they might want to be with you because of that, right? And there's also the other side, which is people might criticize you, right, for always looking in, and then it becomes like, okay, well, I don't want to talk about this, So there are both sides to it. It's still your genius, it's still who you are.
I also want to talk about this, that in personal lives, how can people, find that through gifts? Because in personal lives as well, I see that people are mostly leading from fears and not as much as they can lead from their personal essence, actually, and from their values. And even sometimes people are not even confident about, to be honest, how to create, magical relationships. And I feel as people put so much attention into creating business, which is great, we should be doing that, but at the same time, not a conscious effort to create conscious relationships. So I think that what your work is, finding your genius gifts and really, overcoming your shadows and being fully, expressing yourself in the businesses, I think that would come handy in personal relationships as well, whether it's with a partner or as a parent with a child. So what's your take on that?
Oh yeah, it's really important to know when you're making decisions out of fear. And I know for some of my friends, right, for some reason, they just like don't want their husbands to go have fun with their friends. Why don't you spend your time with me? Like, why don't you stay with me or take me along? And then when we look deep into it, there's a fear there, right? There's a fear of either them being lonely, or there's a fear that their husband might be doing something. And that fear becomes something that is another person in the relationship, right? Just like as business owners, we might, for example, lower our prices because we see everyone else and they have lower prices. And it's like, well, I'm afraid that I'll get priced out or people won't hire me because I'm too expensive. And then rather than focusing on the genius part of you and adding value to that and having people see the value, something that you mentioned, like your journey, right, in the coaching world, instead of going and focusing on that, we're focusing on the fear and what the fear is telling us to do. So a lot of times, we actually do too much in our business because we're afraid that we're not enough. So I know people who are always signed up, like, they're signed up with these classes and how do I build a funnel? How do I start a podcast? How do I do all of these things? And they're doing it all at once. And it's not actually good for their business because they're not focused, right? And when we look at the heart of those decisions, it's fear. It's fear that they're not enough. So just to be able to notice how fear controls your business, or lack or scarcity. Oh, I don't know if I'll have enough clients. I don't know if there are enough people who will come into my program. Things like that keep us from really being in our genius and just having fun and being joyful, right, in our business and relationships. So a really simple, but not always easy, which is why having a coach or a mentor is really important. So a simple question you can ask yourself is, if I wasn't afraid, if I had full confidence, if I fully believed that I am supported and taken care of, would I say yes to this opportunity? Or would I turn it down, right? Would I allow my husband to go on a weekend trip with his friends? Or would I say, no, I still wouldn't want him to do that, right? So it actually doesn't matter the answer. It's more the place that you come from, because that is the kind of purity and the leadership energy that you want in your business and in your relationships, right? But most people, it's actually run by fear, which you can just kind of tune in and sense if that's what's going on. Typically people know, we're smarter than we think.
Awesome. That's really nice what you're saying. And I think we all can relate with that. How many times we are leading from fear in our personal life as well. Yeah. And you mentioned about lack. I think that is another, kind of a window where I see people, so many people operating from lack. both in relationships from maybe lack of love, feeling that, oh, I'm not loved enough or I'm not lovable enough, always that lack, or also in businesses from a lack of abundance. So, and I remember when we were talking, you were talking about how you feel purely, abundant, and you vibrate at that energy of abundance, and that makes all the difference. So how can someone, can start really experiencing abundance when actually they are vibrating at a place where they're feeling lack?
Oh, wow. Yes, because just because I am really tuned into abundance, it's a choice that I make, right? It doesn't mean that all the time everything looks great for me, right? It doesn't mean all the time, but the fact that I can stay in a state of abundance, or if abundance is too strong of a word, just a place of positivity and hope. Right? Just the fact that I'm able to stay in that place, it changes future outcomes and it makes things a lot easier versus being more stuck in the struggle. And I remember a conversation about this earlier, and I talked about it almost like you're training yourself to fall in love. So it's like, if you want to fall in love with, it could be a person, right? Or even your job or your mother-in-law, whatever it is, right? If you want to fall in love with somebody or something, you don't force yourself like, I am in love with you. I am abundant. I love you. You can't force it. But what you can do is start appreciating the little things like, oh, I really love how my mother-in-law talks to me. Or I really love, that she always makes me food. Or I love that she's a strong woman, right? I don't know why I'm saying mother-in-law, but it's these little things, right? These little things that you begin to acknowledge. And then you realize what true wealth is. And true wealth is when you have things that money can't buy, right? And then you realize, wow, my mother-in-law actually, she is wealth. She is a gift, even though she might not be perfect, even though, there's something that she does that drives me crazy. But when you begin to really admire these little bits of her, what happens is you actually begin to shift her in your relationship. And I know this because my parents, I had a very, very difficult relationship with my parents growing up, like really, really difficult. And then as I slowly began to have compassion for them, and then I slowly began to have my heart open to them, they have changed. They are completely different people and they are more abundant. They're actually wealthier financially, even though they're old and retired. It's kind of crazy because of I think it's because of my ability to open my heart to them, which allowed them to open their hearts. And, at the age of like 68 or something, my dad started investing in the stock market with no training, no whatever. And he's had a really good run, like better than the time that he's worked an actual job, right? But it was, I think, my ability to just like hold space and encourage him versus criticize him, which is what he's done to me, Asian parents. And that allowed him to bloom more, right? So, and then we realized that we actually begin by our owning our ability to love people and to own that space of love and abundance. We really begin to change everything. And then I wouldn't be surprised if more clients came to you that were a better fit for you. That's what always happens. So you're not getting the people that are like, oh, can I get a discount, please? I can't afford this. You're getting the people who are like, there's something about you and I just really want to work with you. How much? Okay, great. Sign me up, right? Because you're playing at a different level of life. You're engaging at the level that you're meant to engage, and really things can be easier. So I actually hope that answers your question because I don't know if it did.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I absolutely love that what you said, because I could really feel that. I've experienced that myself, that once we start to, tap into the wealth we already have, which is, that's what you're saying, start to appreciate that the wealth we already have, and we all have that. This is a reality. We're not living in caves, and we are not having survival issue and not thinking.
If you're watching this or listening to this, yes, you have it.
You are in Texas and I'm in India. So we know how abundant we already are. Like there's so much abundance, there's so much connection and interconnectedness with everything, with this universe. And the moment we start tap into that, as you said, and start feeling wealthy already, then the material also starts coming in. The numbers also start going up, and the bank also shows us the same thing as we are vibrating on. So I think that's a wonderful point. Yeah, and it is not that difficult actually to be do as well. It's just a mindset. It's just a bit of shift in the attitude. I think that's what you're saying. Yeah, just look at
Yes.
things. Yeah.
Yes, and really the help and the support, I can't emphasize that enough because sometimes we feel like, oh, well, I can do it myself or it's cheaper if I do it myself. Actually, it's not. It's really not. It costs you your life. It costs you your time. There's a big opportunity cost sometimes when you're doing things yourself that are actually meant to be in community because when you're with someone else, it's a beautiful journey, right? And it's like a dance and they show you things that, oh my gosh, you're learning and it's a journey, it's life, right? And you always make it back. And I really think the big thing, especially for women, sometimes we don't really ask for help, right? There's some shame around that from society or whatever, but it's actually the greatest thing is to be in a space where you feel like, oh, somebody gets me, right? Like Saloni gets me, she sees me for who I really am, versus even when I see myself, right? It could be full of fears.
Wow. Such a beautiful point you have made, because I feel having somebody like a coach or mentor by your side, it itself gives you a feeling of abundance. Well, because you have all that support, and support is like so amazing. It makes you feel so good that somebody's there who is concerned and who sees you, as you said, that truly sees you. And
Mm.
you're so right. So many women, I coach and I talk to, who says, "Oh, I have been struggling for years and years, and I never thought I could just go out and ask for help because no, I have to be strong enough to be able to deal with myself." But that's more of a lack mentality actually, because oh, I can't ask for help. That's like really, again, leading from fears. Yeah.
Yeah. And then how often does that same thing translate to your life where you're doing so much, but you don't need to be doing all of that, right? And then you're just tired and then you yell at your husband, right? Or you get upset at yourself and then it's just like a vicious cycle when really it's pointing to, and that's a pattern, right? That's a pattern that you can see, not asking for help. And then if you get help, it really heals the pattern. And then you realize, wow, I can actually have time for myself.
Amazing, amazing. So the question that is coming to my mind now, I will really ask you this: in your life, Anna, what would you say has been the toughest or the biggest challenges that you have gone through or you have overcome that have really helped you in your life?
Oh yeah, I think because we're born with the thing that we're meant to master, and that thing is always a struggle at first. And if I'm honest, like I think one of the biggest resistances I had to abundance was I really resented people who had money and were born with money and were born with privilege because I didn't have any of that. And I was like, wow, these people have so much power and they don't all use it, for good. Just like anyone, it's not just rich people, right? And I just felt so resentful for so long. And I actually didn't recognize it until I was like, I noticed myself like judging other people, and it's like, oh well, they're successful because their parents gave them money, or these things. And I realized I was just making that up in my head. And then I realized, oh, Anna, you have some issues around money and people who have money. And that's kind of a problem because I'm trying to also be wealthy, right? So it's like there was a part of me that couldn't embrace full abundance because it still was resentful around money. And that was a big part of me that I had to heal. And the reason for that is, so I was born in southern China, and my parents really witnessed the Cultural Revolution, which was anyone that had money, or they didn't even have to have money, they could have a little bit more land than someone else, or an extra duck, right? More than the next person. But it was very serious consequences. Like they would be killed because of it. And that was something that happened in my family. It was like people were like, oh, they're a capitalist because they had more land than the other farmers. Everyone was a farmer, right? And it meant my grandfather's life, right? It was something that was like, you can't have this, you're a capitalist, you're dead. That was it. And so there was typically our fears, I think, have a lineage piece to it. And so examining that and realizing that when you heal this within yourself, you also heal it within your family. So when I mentioned like me healing this work, and then my dad, after he was retired, all of a sudden making money, it's not an accident. It's not something that I could have predicted or planned, but it's like really allowing abundance into your life by doing your own healing. Amazing.
Awesome. That's so true. And we never look at this, like there's a lineage of this happening. And all these things could be so terrifying. And as child as well, we have experienced, as you mentioned, that you were grown with all these things, and this have such deep subconscious impact on our mind,
Yeah.
and that starts running our life.
Yes. And I didn't even know the stories until I was older, right? It's just in the DNA. You just feel it.
Yes, yes. So, this question I want to ask, all of my actually guests that as the tagline is create a life you love living. So, if you have to give like one message to all our audiences, like how to create a life that they would love living, a life which is like thriving, abundant life, what would you say?
Oh my gosh. It's realizing your standards. And a really great way to do that is to just is to really sometimes you can just look at a bunch of words like that how you want to feel in your life, like if I want to feel joyful or if I want to feel abundant. And for me, I discovered that that word was actually interesting. And for some reason, for me and my soul, that's really important. And when I remembered that about myself, it's like I love interesting things. Things are interesting to me. It I realized I was following all of these, business coaches who were successful but were not interesting at all. And I was like, this is why I feel dead on the inside. And I just like started following artists and writers and podcasters, and like people that I found interesting. I was like, oh, I love my life again. So find your value, find the way that you really want to live, because typically as women, we're very accommodating to other people. And I know in my life growing up, we didn't have a bunch of money. So my parents were not like, Anna, you want to do some interesting things? You want to take some interesting classes? Here you go. Spend all the money you want on it, right? That was not the case. But now I can realize like, oh, I can do that for myself. And that makes my life so fulfilling and so worth living. So just identify like one value that's really important to you that maybe you put to the side because of responsibilities or whatever, and lean into that. So I know people like some of their value is feeling free, right? And so if your value is feeling free, just look at your life and how free do you feel in your schedule, in your clothes, in your, everything, right? And if it's not very free, then change it because you'll feel much more fulfilled. What do you think your value is? What do you think is your an important value for you in your life?
For me,
Yeah.
I think read two actually. First is of course being really deeply connected with my own self, my true self. That is the highest value. And second one is authenticity. To really being a coach, I think that comes very naturally. That really able to dance my talk. What I'm coaching others, really being
Yes.
there. Yourself.
And you created that for yourself, right? Like it took work to
Yes.
really,
Yeah.
yeah,
Lot
create
of
that life in Korea.
lot of work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was beautiful what you said, that really recognizing what is our deepest values and start living life in alignment with that. And I'm sure that would be handy to create a beautiful, beautiful life.
Yeah.
Awesome. That was amazing talking to you, and there's so many nuggets I think we all have taken. Thank you so much for joining us, Anna. And it was wonderful talking to you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everybody. This has been so much fun.
Thank you. Bye bye. That was a wonderful conversation with Anna Tsui, and I'm sure you took a lot of takeaways from that. Understanding your personal essence, recognizing your shadow, and embracing them, overcoming them, and vibrating at the level of abundance and prosperity, positivity, and hope. And do not hesitate to ask for help. If you want to hire a coach, a mentor, go for it because you are worth it. And all and a lot of other things. Please send me a feedback, what you liked, your takeaways in the comment section, and give me a review for the podcast if you like this podcast, and share with others as well. And I will look forward to see you in my next podcast with another amazing, amazing guest. Till then, keep evolving, keep growing, and create a life that you love living.